I think the idea of console exclusives is needs to end just completely. And I'm not really referring to Microsoft because Xbox has done a very good job of putting their games on PC. In fact, Towerborn. This is a game I've been looking forward to. Yeah, this is a game I've been looking forward to. This game is being published by Xbox Game Studios. It's going to launch on Game Pass, Windows, and Steam. So it's not just going to be on Xbox. It's going to be also on PC. It's going to be on Windows. And I'm not necessarily referring to Nintendo in this either, because I don't think Nintendo fans are ready to have that conversation about console exclusives coming to PC. They're not ready for that conversation yet. Maybe in a few years we'll start having that conversation, but not right now. I'm mostly referring to a company called PlayStation. Now I'm a PlayStation fan myself. I have a PS5. I love my PS5. I like the control. The controller's decent. I have some problems with it, but it's got a nice controller. I like the hardware behind it. In this day and age, I would like to see Sony try to expand their audience more into PC. And this is going to sound like one big port bag for Sony games to release day and date on PC, and it is. But, I think there's some really good reasons behind this. And for one, yeah, it's a chance to grow your audience. See, the console market has kind of stagnated over the last few years. It hasn't really grown much. Microsoft and PlayStation and even to some extent Nintendo have only been selling their consoles to the same audience, and they haven't really been growing their audience outside of who buys consoles, and that's not good. So, but what's even worse is that not only are they not growing their console sales, they're not the games that they're developing for the consoles for PlayStation and Xbox. The price of making those games has gone up, like, significantly. I said this last week, but The Last of Us Part 2 costs like $200 million to make. God of War Ragnarok costs $200 million to make. Spider-Man 2, it was revealed in the Insomniac leak that Spider-Man 2 costs like $315 to make. Now, to be fair, that's a lot of that. There was some licensing money that Sony had to pay, Sony had to pay to Disney to use the Spider-Man IP. So, PlayStation should really start releasing. PlayStation's been slowly releasing their games on PC, sometimes a few years after games come out. Sometimes it's 2 years, sometimes it's 1 year, 4 years for Ghost of Tsushima. I believe Ghost is coming out of Tsushima. Yeah. This game came out in 2019. Tsushima. Oh, okay, yeah, 2020. Okay, 2020. So this is like 4 years after the game came out, and Sony's just now releasing it on PC. Now, mind you, Ghost of Tsushima didn't. Ghost of Tsushima was not that expensive to make. But still, 4 years after it releases is an interesting choice for them to make. Disney owns Spider-Man. Yeah, Disney owns Marvel. So Disney owns the Marvel properties. But they do not own the movie rights to Spider-Man. They only own the video game rights and TV shows for Spider-Man. Sony actually owns the movie rights to Spider-Man. So like I think it's like anything longer than 45 minutes for Spider-Man, media. It's mostly Sony. But Disney has to but Disney owns the video game rights to Spider-Man. So that means when they want to make a Spider-Man game, Sony has to pay the rights to Disney for Spider-Man. Microsoft is developing a Blade game. Microsoft has to pay licensing fees to Disney for to use Blade. Well, Bethesda is, but let's face it, Microsoft's footing the bill. Now, I don't think Microsoft's paying as much for Blade because I don't think Blade isn't really as big as Spider-Man, but but Blade is getting an MCU movie, I think in 2025, or in the next few years. So that the cost of using the Blade character could go up if they decide to do a sequel to Blade if Bethesda want to do a sequel to Blade. But, you know, the point I'm trying to make is that I think, you know, Xbox is already doing this. Xbox is already bringing their games to PC day and date. Because they know there's a big audience on PC that will buy those games on launch. And Microsoft wants those developers to have the biggest audience possible when they release their games. And that's a good thing, because the bigger the audience that buys these games, the more the more money they make, and the better chance we'll get for a sequel. Nintendo is really the exception, not the rule. You know, Nintendo doesn't really have to do this. Nintendo doesn't really spend that much money, spend as much money as Microsoft or Sony does making games. In fact, a lot of what, you know, Nintendo does, they they develop their games are mostly developed in Japan. They don't really pay the same salaries that we do in the U.S. That Sony and Microsoft do in the U.S. A lot of Sony's developers are in the Los Angeles area, and if you're living or working in the Los Angeles area, or in Santa Monica, you're probably getting a six-figure salary. You're probably making over $100,000 a year. So there's a lot of people need to make these games as well. We're talking sometimes in the case of hundreds, sometimes it's over 1,000, 2,000 people are making these games. A lot of resources goes into making these games. Now, some people will point out Grand Theft Auto 6 isn't going to have a PC release. Grand Theft Auto 6 is, again, the exception, not the rule. Grand Theft Auto is a juggernaut. Like, everybody's heard of Grand Theft Auto. Like, everybody knows what Grand Theft Auto is. It's not quite the same thing. And the reason I'm talking about this is because we're getting articles like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, it's underperforming in terms of sales. This was talked about by Daniel Ahmed. He reports on industry sales and whatnot. But he says Rebirth is underperforming sales-wise. It's looked like it's selling about half of what Remake sold in the same time frame, and looks like it'll have a weaker tail prior to any PS Plus release. So this isn't great, but there's some nuance here. One, when Final Fantasy VII Remake launched, the PS4 had over 100 million units sold, I think. And also Remake sold during a pandemic. So everybody was playing games in 2020 during a pandemic. And that's fine. I think the issue is with Square Enix is that Square wants Final Fantasy to be, bigger than it is. And the thing is, they keep releasing their games on PlayStation. Square is releasing some of the best games they ever have, but they're only releasing them on PlayStation. And to be honest with you, they're not really doing anything to grow their fan base on other platforms. I'm not saying they need to put the games on Xbox or anything like that. God willing, we put Final Fantasy on Xbox. Yes, Xbox Series consoles only have 30 million units out there, but that's not bad. It's not PlayStation good, but it's not terrible. And actually, Microsoft revealed some hardware numbers the other day for Xbox, and they really weren't that good. Xbox hardware sales are down. But yeah, Final Fantasy VII. But I think Square Enix wants to grow Final Fantasy, and the issue is that they keep making dumb decisions. Like Final Fantasy VII Remake, they put the game exclusively on the Epic Games Store. It's like, who does that? They signed a deal with Epic Games to put it on the Epic Games Store. Their games should be releasing into Steam, and they should be releasing day and date of the PlayStation release. I know Sony has this old mindset of, we need to sell as many consoles as we can, and that way we'll make as much money off software. The problem is that was a very good strategy up until 2014. And the industry has kind of changed since then. Like I said, games are getting more expensive and bigger to develop. Microsoft and Sony were fine doing that during the 360 and PS3 days, but I think it's better if if the publishers try to grow their franchises on PC at least. Take for example Sega. Like, Sega has announced they're not doing any more exclusives. Like, Sega's done doing exclusives. And the reason they are is because they want to grow their franchises into global franchises. They want to grow Persona 6 and Yakuza, Sonic the Hedgehog. I think Jet Set Radio is getting a new release into the future sometime. They want these games wherever they can release them. Persona 3 is released on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC day and date, and it's probably going to get a Switch 2 version whenever Switch 2 decides to launch, whenever Nintendo decides to do that. And that's because Sega wants to make, they want to release their really good games on other platforms so more people will play them. You have to foster an audience on other platforms. You can't just expect to release the games and expect them to sell. This isn't, 2002 anymore. Where you can just release a game on a PlayStation 2 and it'll do really, really well based off your brand name. It doesn't really happen like that. You have to help foster a franchise on that platform. And they've done really good at doing this with Xbox. Releasing those games in Xbox Game Pass and, gaining momentum on that platform and releasing them right into Steam for, the PC release. And they've had some success doing that. I can tell you right now, Persona 6, Persona 6 is going to come to Xbox, PC, and PlayStation day and date. They're not doing exclusives anymore. They shouldn't have to do that. They're not going to do that anymore. Because Persona 6 is going to be a juggernaut in and of itself. It may not sell as much as other games out there, but for a JRPG, it's going to do very well because it's going to be on different platforms. And I think that looking at what Sega's doing with their franchises, they need to. I think Square Enix needs to take that same strategy and try and foster an audience on other platforms. If you're an Xbox fan, why would you, or even PC, why would you really want to buy a Final Fantasy game when you know that, they're not gonna release the games the same day? You're probably gonna find something else to play, and even by the time they do come to PC or Xbox, your focus is going to be on other games. Square has to strike while the iron is hot. I think Square Enix released Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core on Xbox a couple months ago. And I just have to ask, what if if you only play on Xbox, what's the point of you downloading Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core? Is there really any point to buying that game when you can't even play the remake games on your console or even the newer Final Fantasy 16? Why should you have to ask yourself, why should I invest in this game when Square isn't, bringing their best games to the platform that I choose to play on? That's it. And I think Square Enix is kind of in a very weird spot with Final Fantasy with Final Fantasy in general. Now, that's not to say that Rebirth is selling bad. It's just not selling what Square Enix wants it to. There's a difference. Yes, they're making profit, but Square Enix would like Final Fantasy VII to be the zeitgeist that it once was, and it's not. Take a look at this chart right here. PC does make more in terms of revenue than console does. Mind you, there is some nuanced here. It's a lot of PC games that people play. They've been playing them for years, like World of Warcraft, Team Fortress, Counter-Strike. Those games have been around forever on PC. Mobile obviously just dominates. Look at that, 101 billion versus 45 and 30 billion. Mobile just crushes it. Honestly, hardcore gamers, me as a hardcore gamer, hardcore gamers really can't understand this, but iPhone and Android phones generate way more money for gaming than consoles or PC ever do. Oh, look at that poor arcade. Oh, that's sad. But anyway, my point is that I think PlayStation needs to start letting their third-party developers foster an audience on PC. Team Ninja just released Rise of the Ronin. Let's see if it's on here. Rise of the Ronin. And a lot of people are really enjoying this game. Whoops. Yeah, a lot of people are really enjoying Rise of the Ronin. This is actually one probably it's not one of the better games that released this year. Well, actually, it is one of the better games that released this year. It did pretty decent in the reviews, but you know, Team Ninja is also another one. I think they need to understand that taking that paycheck from Sony versus fostering a community on another platform like PC, yes, there's risk to it. There's high risk to it, but the reward is infinitely better than if you foster an audience on PC, because you're guaranteed better day one sales. A game like Stellar Blade, I think Stellar Blade, for the developer, I think it makes sense for them to release the game exclusively on PlayStation. One, because I think they're very much new to the single player console games that, you know, PlayStation has experience making, and, you know, releasing. I think Stellar Blade actually did very well in the reviews, and that's good. I'm glad it did well in reviews. I'm probably going to play it somewhere down the line, I think. But if there's going to be a sequel to Stellar Blade, like, yeah, well, if there's going to be a Stellar Blade 2, I definitely think that Sony should let the developer, I can't remember their name. They're from South Korea, though. The developer should launch day and date on PC and at least try to get start building up a fan base on PC that will buy games like Stellar Blade from them. Because we want the developer to be as successful as possible these days. You know, gaming is a very volatile industry. We've been seeing a lot of studio layoffs, and that's been for another reason that we'll talk about down the line. The whole point of me saying this is that I want to see the game. I want to see games. You know, I do want to see AAA gaming do better. I want to see it grow. It's something that needs to happen because we're not really, you know, the console industry, the console market isn't really growing, which is an issue. That's going to become an issue later on down the line. I do still think we're going to get PlayStation 6 and PlayStation 7. We're going to get a next-gen Xbox. We're going to get a Switch 2 eventually. But I don't know what the console market is going to look like 10 years from now or 15 years from now. I don't know where mobile gaming is going to be 10 or 15 years from now. This is something that I really want to see Square Enix, you know, and other developers that Sony signs these console exclusives with. I really want to see these developers start growing, you know, their audience on PC. And yes, I do play on PC. PC is slowly becoming my main platform. Now, all these games that I mentioned, like the two Final Fantasy VII Remake games and Rise of the Ronin and Stellar Blade, I am going to play those on my PlayStation because I don't really have a choice of where to play them. But you know, I think even Sony's starting to realize this, but I think eventually PlayStation is going to start releasing their games day and date on PC. They want to make more money. They want to grow their audience. They want to foster an audience on another platform. They're eventually going to want to do that. You know, we want games to be bigger and better every generation or every few years. So yeah, there is going to have to be a trade-off there. And I know PlayStation fans are very weirdly uncomfortable with games coming to PC, their exclusive games coming to PC. But keep in mind, nothing is being taken from PlayStation. We're just adding to another market that is willing to buy these games. You know, PC gamers will show up day and date to buy your game when the game releases when the game releases day and date. They will. PC gamers are not the people who always wait for Steam sales. They'll wait for Steam sales if the game releases 1 year after the game releases. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's PC sales spike when there's a sale for the game. But I don't know if the game's going to necessarily get a big boost, you know, releasing on PC in a year. I don't even know if Final Fantasy 16 is going to get a big boost releasing on PC. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about that, and hopefully we'll start seeing more PC releases from PlayStation, whether or not it be, you know, third-party deals that they sign or even their first-party exclusives. Hopefully we see these games day and date on PC, because I want this industry to do better, and I want PlayStation to grow their AAA, to grow AAA gaming to other platforms, because let's face it, they do really good at it. So that's all I wanted to talk about.